about it now. He's like, well, I've made this film. What the fuck do you want me to do? I've made this film, and it's people like, oh, well, why is the film not coming here? And he's like, well, nobody's asked me to go there. And it's like, people want Paul to do this, and then they want him to go and do a million other things. They're like, well, what about you doing something? What about you getting off your arse? If you're that obsessed about this, why don't you get off your arse and go and do something? Paul's trying his best here. And it's just a fair play to him, because I would have lost the plot with some of them.
Paul, I got a text message for Jason, right? At 20 to 6. I don't know what time the film finished.
That would have been probably the end of the Q&A harper.
Right, so I got a text for Jason that I think we both know Jason would be brutally honest about stuff, especially just me and him talking about stuff like that, And I just got a text from him, and a text message which you never text. I mean, it's usually always via WhatsApp. So I thought this must be important. It's a text message to make sure it comes through. And all it says was, and I'd never asked the question or anything I just said the film was quality, amazing, with the wee fist up the shamrock. And I thought, and I texted him, I said, happy days, man. I'm genuinely glad to hear it. And he just texted back again, amazing. So that to me, that tells me everything I need to know.
I mean, it's funny, Harper, because and I kind of touched on this earlier off-air, is that Jason talked about how you do get this advice and all that, and do this, do that, and whatever. And as one guy was like, so what are you doing about all this? And I was like, well, I've done a book, an audio book, a film. I'm trying my best, and that can really get to you because you do feel like, I mean, I'm a human being, and you feel like saying to somebody, just shut the fuck up, you know what I mean? Right. But you can't, because you have to sort of, and this show has been a hell of a sort of comfort blanket for me, in the sense that I could come on and speak to three guys and
just tell us to fuck off. Take it at us.
And just speak to three guys who, that I love and are tremendous friends and are comrades and all that kind of thing. And we all kind of come from it, and it kind of brings you back down to earth and relaxes you. And there's been many times, and I'm sure this has been the same for the likes of both of these, for many different issues, where you've come into a show and you can't be asked, or you didn't, and you go to a show fucking buzzing.
Aye.
You know what I mean? And that is something, as this show has been consistently, and it was amazing, talk about things, with the Ask This Year's project, you've had, you yourself have done all the formatting for the books, which has been vital. Joe done a wonderful song, which is just utterly amazing. And Jason, as I said, I always say to people at these things, every time here's my bodyguard, and I say that only half in jest, because I know, all right, there's 200 people there and they're coming this out, but I know if one person said anything to me or had a go at me or whatever, Jason, I know for his actions would be the first guy to jump in front of me, always, because he gives you that impression. And I always say that. And I always say that when you're in these situations, you need people like that.
Aye, because it comforts you,
Aye, I mean, you need, you can fucking be as diplomatic as you want, but when the chips are down and it's on top, you need somebody who's just willing to go smack, you know what I mean, or whatever. And that is what I've always tried to be. I've always tried to be myself, in the sense, so I kind of know what to do and whatever for anybody. And that's what I tried to put into the film, was to try and think about people like yourselves and the people like me who didn't want to watch a film of balance sheets and fucking obsession. I mean, I kind of told a story at the start. I'll not say what, because I'll probably use it again. But about how you can become too obsessed with something because you hate it too much, and used it in a jokey sense and that kind of thing. But we tried. One of the great things that Ja was good at was that Ja obviously isn't a Celtic supporter. He's probably someone with Celtic leanings, if you like, more so now. And once he got his head around the subject matter, he read the book cover to cover, and the everything in that film was taken out of the book. There was clearly some new reveals and stuff like that, but the narrative was formed for the book, and he came at it. He's just like us, is what I'm trying to say. He's a working class guy. He's done very well for himself in his chosen profession, but he's never changed. You know what I mean? As well as editing the film, and directing me with filming it and stuff like that, and being a cameraman at times as well. You know, he put me up. He took, invited me to his house, his wife, he fed me, and, we went out for drinks and all that kind of thing. So he was a mate, he's been a good mate of mine for a long time. But you have to separate yourself professionally from that, because I'm kind of his boss, and I know that, and even when I say that, it's kind of stupid, but I'm the guy paying his wages. Mm-hmm. And I can't just kind of butter him up and say, aye, just do what you want. You have to be forceful. But at the same time, he's forceful with me in the sense of saying, oh no, that's weak, that's shit, and all that. And we grew a lot closer, and I was so delighted for him to get the adulation that he got on Saturday as well, because he deserves it. But as I said, that to people in both auditoriums, in both days, I beg your pardon, is that without the people that come to this or come on these shows or whatever, there'd be nothing. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be anything. People. I get asked a million questions, and the only questions that ever annoy me is when the people who always say they hate the media, yet somehow need their approval of things before they'll actually, so they're all like, oh, some guy who's like, you got to get a screening for the press. It's like, no. Why the fuck am I, like, as far as I'm concerned, they hate us. That's it. It's never going to change, and I'm never going to need their fucking approval on anything. So they didn't look for mine. So because that's what goes back to what I was saying about the Homeboys. That's not us. We aren't the kind of guys. Yeah. We didn't go fucking kowtowing to people on that, because it's just not our nature, and that's what I mean. Proud of it. And as Jason touched on, and I mentioned this to Jason before the thing, I said, about enjoying it, and that I says, because I'm always one of these people who always looks back or forward, but never really smells the roses. There was a few moments where I was like, this is just amazing, you know what I mean? And I do feel a sense of achievement in the sense that I did work hard, and it didn't just fall in my lap. And I completely agree with you, because I never really liked that kind of stuff either. But, we went to hell and back on this project, and, I was delighted to have, at the second screening, my eldest son, who suffered throughout this, my mother, who suffered throughout this, people close to me who suffered throughout this, and it was important to them because, I'll be honest with you, before the one on the Sunday, I'm thinking, what if they turn round to me and say, is this why we suffered? This fucking load of pish. You know what I mean? And my mum was green at the end, James said, I'm proud of you, Dad, and that's, he never, we're not that kind of, we're not huggers, and
you're stealing all my questions here. Fuck's sake.
But anyway, I'm getting too emotional.
Because I was going to ask you, it must have been a very proud moment. I was going to ask you, like, did you have, was your son in that there, and was there many family members there and that, like, like, I don't know, uncles and cousins or stuff like that, and what was the reaction for them? Because it must have been a very proud moment for them, like, as well as for you to have them there, like.
Well, you know what, it's kind of weird because you're just so immersed in the whole thing that you kind of forget at the end that there's actually going to be Jai would always say, making a film's like going to the moon. You never think you're going to get there, and then when you do, you're just like, wow, And it was exactly like that. He knew his stuff and all that kind of thing, and even I could feel them, people, family members and stuff, and all I was thinking was after the second show was, oh Christ, what if they asked me something embarrassing in the Q&A or mentioned something about my childhood? And they just sat there and they were fucking mesmerised by the whole thing. I do mention both my sons in the film at the end and stuff like that, and it's important. They're the people. I'm always somebody who's kind of be wary false idols, and I'm always a fan of people who are who come for nothing and do things that change the world and things like that. And they are the kind of people that I look to for adulation and for approval. No journalists, critics, fucking whatever. The people around me, like yourselves, like my family and all that, because I think if you can please the people in the streets, you've done it. You know what I mean? That's all that matters.
There's a question in the chat room which it doesn't go off topic, but it just takes a wee bit to was it Claire Fowler, the singer?
Yes.
Now, obviously, anybody who listened to the podcast that you done with Graham, that song, "Fortunate Son," was played then, so anybody could go there and hear it anyway, like, But Alec Burrow in the chat room was asking who chose the song Unfortunate Son, and why was it chosen?
Well, it was chosen. It wasn't actually the only thing that was taken from Fortunate Son was the chorus. I rewrote it for the film, and it was because of an aspect of the film which is really important to me, and I've always thought might not be important to other people, is that this was not about Rangers and cheating. This was about the establishment being able to live in a bubble that allowed them to do whatever they wanted, and that's the people that I hate and want to attack. As I said before, us guys for the streets grow up in, council estates and stuff like that. We get fucked by these people every day, and so when that song came along, which John Fogerty wrote, the lyrics of that song resonated with me. It ain't me, I ain't no fortunate one. Because one of the things I've tried to continually say throughout this project is, in the Edinburgh establishment, you fail up the way. Opportunities come and come and come, and they keep coming. And so what I did was rewrite it to adapt to the story and to people like Ogilvy and Murray and people like that and their fans, and played her. Now, she sang on the podcast that I did previously the actual version that John Fogerty wrote. The one that will be released on the soundtrack on the 28th of November, quick plug, is the one that I wrote for Claire to sing. And she went away and recorded that and stuff like that, and that's what forms part of the intro to the film. And so, yeah, I mean, Claire, Liam Fowler is someone who I know and had said, if you're looking for everybody, I needed a female singer because I needed a female voice because, I wanted something like that. And Claire got in touch with me and she's like, this is my stuff on Bandcamp. What do you think? Probably listening to it for 30 seconds and said, aye, you're in. You know what I mean? And that was it. And she came along, and as Jason touched on, that's probably the only time in the entire two days where there was not a sound to be heard. It was when Claire was singing, because she is that good.
Right, she's a really sort of haunting voice, it's beautiful. HutchieBoy67 in the chat room, staying on the music then, he says, ask Paul if it's okay for me to put my song on YouTube.
No, it's not.
No, because that's obviously going to be part of the
soundtrack.
Part of the soundtrack. Hutchie get a grip, son. So, coming back then to your man Ja, right? How obviously he's done films before, but has he ever sort of, I know he's a football fan, he's a Liverpool fan. How did he? I mean, I'm asking you a question that probably maybe only he can answer, but how was he with the Q&A? I mean, did a lot of it get directed towards him? Was he comfortable doing that? I mean, was it a bit of an eye-opener for him? I mean...
he got two questions, I think, and, Jason's got far more experience. Liverpool tell you, Scousers are no backward at coming forward. You know what I mean? So that was the problem. And Jazz sort of guy that he's very well connected. He's got loads of famous friends and people like that. But he's as comfortable with them as he is with guys like us, and all that kind of thing. And I actually thought he was absolutely brilliant because, with that kind of forceful Scouse attitude, it was just like, we need to get this fucking film out there. That's why I done it. And that got around the applause, you know what I mean? Ja is someone I've known for a long time. And when I realised this was getting serious and we had to do something with a film, I thought, well, Ja makes films. And he's the one guy that I know that makes films. So I contacted him on Facebook Messenger and said, you still doing the old editing, mate? And he's like, yeah, mate, what you got? And then I told him, he's like, oh, for fuck's sake, right, you'll need to come down and see me. He goes, I thought you were going to show me a holiday video or some fucking thing. And so I went down to Liverpool in February, and great host. He drinks in Hardman Street in Liverpool, which is place pubs, the Fly and the Loaf and all that kind of thing. And every time I go down to this pub, because he's the other guy, Paulo, he's a big Everton fan, and he couldn't make it, unfortunately. And I mean, they just go back and forth all the time. And the guy who owns the pub said to me, the only time they stop arguing is when you come down, because we all get to have a go at you Scottish cunts, you know? And it is a bit like that, you just sit there and take it. But Ja, he added a level of expertise that just really wouldn't have, you know, I had quite a few people saying, oh, who's your director and who's your editor, and a kind of sneering sense and all that sort of thing. And